No mai haere mai. Welcome to Climate Kōrero, brought to you by Climate Action Tai Tokoro, the podcast where we dive deep into the challenges, obstacles, and perspectives shaping our changing climate. Join us as we explore how communities across Tai Tokoro, Aotearoa and beyond are adapting, growing, and finding strength in the face of our changing climate. From local heroes to global movements, we kōrero with those on the front lines of sustainability, innovation, and resilience. Whether you're a climate advocate or just curious about the world around you, there's a place for you in our conversation. So grab a cuppa, settle in, let's talk climate.
Kia ora te whānau, this is Climate Kōrero and we are here in Panguru today, and our very special guest, Jared Hiakita. We're on his whenua and very excited to talk to you, bro. Tēnā koe.
Tēnā koe, brother. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. So just a bit of whanaungatanga, bro, from my side. This is with Climate Action Tai Tokoro, and we're just going around interviewing some amazing people like yourselves, sharing knowledge with the listeners and hoping to create a bit of a kai sovereignty network, understand what's going on in Tai Tokoro, and see how we can support each other. So, yeah, thank you for agreeing to be on this.
Yeah. Kia ora, bro. I think it's a awesome kaupapa, and just happy to be sharing some whakaaro of what I've been learning over the last few years. So, yeah, thank you.
Yeah, awesome. So already I can see a whole heap of syntropic agroforestry, permaculture, all sorts of stuff going on here.
Yeah.
Can you give us a bit of a rundown on what is your vision and how did you come to this beautiful whenua?
Yeah, well, I guess, if I go back, I was brought up in a house where food security was challenging. Sometimes there was dinner on the table and then sometimes there wasn't. And sometimes we would just make some peanut butter and jam sandwiches for dinner, and I would call that, dinner a few colours short of the rainbow. I guess coming from that background, but at the same time hearing these amazing kōrero about my koro, my grandfather, my nan, my uncles and aunties, and how they grew up with abundance of food. Their maras were just huge, just rows and rows and rows and rows of kai, heaps and heaps of chickens and pigs, and I'm sure that I know actually life was tough for them too, and there was times of shortages, but it was just amazing when I started hearing these stories. But by the time I was hearing those stories, and that's kind of all they were just stories now, and everyone had moved on into modernisation, urbanisation, and most of my whānau,
the great hikoi to Auckland sort of thing.
Yeah, and just that being seduced into that way of life, the convenience, grocery stores, all of that. And so I don't blame anyone for doing that. And we're still, definitely plugged into that system here. We still buy a lot of kai from the grocery store, but our kaupapa is let's move away from that, start unplugging from those things that are harming papa tuanuku, that are degrading the earth, that are destructive toward our environment. So that's the aim. That's kind of like where we want to be heading. And it's been a clunky journey so far. Like you've taken a couple of steps forward and then you're falling over and trying to get back up again, and then you get busy, and then the garden kind of stops producing food, and it's all learning, and it's all just seasons. Sometimes you have lots of time to do the gardening, sometimes you don't. So about 4 years ago we started our organisation called Onuku Aotearoa.
Right.
Onuku meaning of earth, of papa tuanuku.
Beautiful.
And our kaupapa basically is to empower Aotearoa toward intergenerational food security.
Primo. That sounds beautiful. Props to you for taking the initiative to see that vision through. I guess a lot of what we're seeing at the moment is that disconnect, especially with our rangatahi. I work with rangatahi at the moment, and the heavy reliance on Uber Eats and and all that stuff, and there's no understanding of like,
Yeah.
oh no, the carrot comes from the ground.
Yeah.
But then when you introduce that to a young person and they actually pull one out, like the amazement,
Mm.
like whoa,
Mm.
we need to fix a few things
Yeah.
here.
Kia ora, bro.
Mm.
Yeah.
So I guess you've been on a learning journey yourself. What have been the big learnings? And also, I know you've been on this whenua for 8 years.
8 years. Yeah.
Yeah.
Coming up 8 years.
Wow, that's a
Yep.
long time. Super
Yeah.
keen to hear about your observations
Yeah.
with the whenua, the soils, the water, like whatever kind of things
Kia ora,
and
bro.
obstacles that
Yep.
came
Yep.
up.
Yeah. Yeah, so we've been living here in Hokianga for nearly 8 years. We live just outside of a community called Panguru, and we're here on this nice clay soil, this nice heavy clay soil, on my wahine, her whānau's farm.
Right.
And they've been here for a while. They've been here for about 120 years. So neither my wahine and her whānau or I have whakapapa to this whenua, which, as we had a little kōrero earlier on, that's an interesting space to be in as a Māori, as a tūturu tūhoi person, from quite far away to be here. But I just love it. I love Hokianga. I love the people, the communities, and I love the whenua, and I love the harbour. So just waimarie, we're all lucky to be here. So me mihi ka tika ki te mana whenua. Just definitely want to mihi to the mana whenua here. Various, motiti, motukaraka. We're here very, and so far in a very welcome way, so we're lucky. But over the last 8 years, been interesting. So I really got into passionate about growing kai, food forests and stuff like that about 10 years ago, probably. Maybe a little more, maybe like 11,
What
12.
sparked it?
Well, one of the first things that sparked it was going to Koanga Institute. My cousin randomly just said, "Bro, do you want to come for a trip with us? We think you'll like it." And so I was like, "Yeah, okay, sweet." So I went. He took me down to Koanga Institute, and we had a day tour, and I got to see, what a thriving food system looks like. And so, they got pumping gardens, and then they've got their animals, and then they've got their orchards and their food forests, and they're all working together. They're all contributing to each other. The animals and their manure are feeding into the gardens and the orchards, and the water system is being created in a way that's kind of like allowing the water to be used to its most efficiently, and all of that sort of thing. So I saw that, and then a few years later I went to Permadynamics, kind of saw the same thing.
Oh,
but
with Klaus and the team.
Yeah.
Oh, choice.
So went to Permadynamics, that was an eye opener. Going to Permadynamics and seeing what is possible. They've just got an amazing thing going on, and I'd recommend anyone follow them on socials. If they're hosting a workshop, go see them. I went and done a bunch of workshops with them.
Cool.
Spent quite a lot of time there, just seeing what a humming food system looks like.
Awesome.
That's what got me really excited, seeing that.
Yeah.
And then so in 2020, after like 6 years of learning, not a whole lot of implementation. Just a lot of learning and doing courses and having a little, try here and there, doing a little bit of planting, a little bit of gardening with not much success. But 4 years ago, we kind of began actually planting.
Yes.
And you probably can see in the background, like we've got some pretty big trees already. Some of those are like 10-meter tall trees.
Yeah.
They're fast-growing trees.
So how long has that taken?
Well, 4 years.
Okay.
Yeah, and I've cut down a bunch of these trees, the ones that were getting too tall. So, they're acacias, which are known to be fast and in the wrong context, invasive as well. But that's one kind of way, or in terms of Syntropic Agroforestry, which is
Yes.
the modality that I learnt from permadynamics,
Yep.
which is a particular style of arranging plants, designing the way they're planted to be super complementary, so that you can have a lot of plants in a small area.
I heard a conversation I think you had on RNZ talking
Yeah.
about there was 4 parts to it. And
Yeah.
that part about the density of
Yeah.
Can you explain a bit more?
Yeah, sure. So there's Syntropic Agroforestry. There's 4 main principles
Right.
that kind of guide you as you do your planting and you manage your plantings. Probably the first one is density. So all of these principles, whether we're talking about permaculture, Syntropic Agroforestry, hua parakore, regenerative agriculture, they all lean into how the world naturally operates, the systems and the ecosystems that nature, papatua nuku,
Yes.
tāne mahuta, that they have created, lean into that. And what can we, what ideas and systems can we use in our own gardens, in our own food forests, orchards. So the 4 principles of Syntropic Agroforestry, the first one is density.
Right.
If you walk into a towering native forest, that's
Yeah.
2,000-year-old trees are just in there, it's dense,
Yeah, of course.
it's real dense. I've done a lot of work in the bush when I was younger, and sometimes it would take me 5 minutes to walk 10 meters
Yeah, right.
because there's so much plant, and there's vines and supplejack, and it's so dense.
Yeah.
It's fully shaded on the ground because there's these multiple layers of trees stacking up, so that by the time the sun's filtered through all of that, there's almost nothing left that reaches the ground. So
But there's still
density,
life, so
so much life.
Yeah.
So much life. So density. Planting is real densely. One of the reasons is because the more plants there are in a space, the more photosynthesis that can happen.
gotcha. Right.
And when a plant photosynthesizes, it's creating sugar and pumping some of that sugar into the soil, feeding the beneficial microbes, and then retaining some of it for itself too.
Yeah, awesome.
So if you can organize a stack of plants in a small area, knowing that like some of these can handle heavy shade, some can handle a little bit of shade, and some need full sun, you can stack them up, and have like, here's this emergent tree coming up that's going to want that full sun right at the top above the canopy. Then there's that canopy layer. They want like a significant amount of sun, but they don't need full sun.
Yep.
And then you get down to the lower layers where there's less and less sun. And so if you can choose plants and arrange them in that way, then you're getting maximum photosynthesis, maximum microbial life,
Yeah.
and so on. So that's density. The next principle is diversity.
Okay.
And so same again, you go into a native potacup forest in Aotearoa, you'll see remu, totara, like all of the big beautiful trees, and then you'll see epiphytes.
Yep.
You'll see
Yep.
keke and stuff like that's actually growing on the trees, and then there'll be little shrubby aruhes, and there's just so many different kinds of plants, and especially in the potacup forest. Sorry about
Yeah,
the pig and the dog having some fun.
Yeah, all right, mate.
And the idea behind diversity is there's a lot of stability and resilience with diversity, because if you get a specific say fungus coming in that's destroying a plant, because that plant might be one of 300 plants in just a small area, it's only that one plant that's going to be affected, and the other 299 plants are resilient from that. So there's a resilience and a stability that comes from having lots of different kinds of plants. But there's also, every plant has its own set of special relationships with microbial life with bacteria,
Yeah,
fungi, viruses.
I guess there's a communication that happens between them, like the mycelium network with the mushrooms and things like that, eh? So I guess they're all kind of working together to try and,
Yeah,
uh, suss that fungus out, or
yeah.
defend themselves.
Yeah, exactly, bro. As we're finding out more and more, the mycelium network is just an amazing,
Yeah,
just way for trees to kind of act as an entity. You know, they're not separate; they're connected, and they're often working together and helping each other.
that's fascinating.
It's fuzzy.
Yeah.
And so the more diversity you have, though, then the more you can cater for the various types of bacterias and just the beneficial microbial life, because every plant has a special ability to connect with a different set of microbes.
Right.
If you have all the one plant, it only has its ability to connect with its own set of microbial life. And the other thing is every plant has its own ability to gather different types of nutrients and minerals.
Yep.
So, the more diversity you have, then the more likely you are to access the smorgasbord of minerals and nutrients in your soil, because one plant can only harvest a certain amount of those goodies that are in the soil.
I understand.
So that's the diversity kind of part.
Choice.
The next bit is stratification, which is a fancy word for just arranging the plants appropriately, so that you know that you don't have plants that are going to clash with each other too much.
Yes.
Or you can put plants together that might clash, but you need to manage them appropriately, prune them appropriately so they have room to be able to cooperate in a small space. And then the last principle is succession, which is about understanding the life cycle of a plant and how long it's going to live, and making sure that, say, if you plant an orchard, that you have trees that are going to live for a variation of times.
Yep.
You want some long-lived trees in there, like 100+ year trees, which might be nuts or pears or even apples. I've heard of apples living for a really long time. But if you just plant all tamarillos, 7-8 years later, all your tamarillos are going to die. If you haven't planted anything else, then you have to restart again.
So what's I guess one example of a, I guess, densely populated sort of area? Yeah. What would you have on here?
Well, in the beginning, we leaned heavily into introduced species. So we were using a lot of Mexican sunflower, bunna grass, comfrey, cocksfoot grass, comfrey cocksfoot ground level layer, things like Brazilian buttercup, eucalyptus, acacias, nitrogen fixing species like acacias, and then more long-term species like fruit tree, like bananas, having bananas. There might be a cherimoya custard apple next to those bananas. So I think banana clumps can kind of go for quite a while, like 15 to 20 years before they start losing their productivity.
Right.
Cherimoya, I think it has more of a 20 to 30 year life cycle. Might be wrong, someone might want to check that, but Tamarillo's short life cycle, 7-8 years. So you could plant, here's a simple example, we could plant a Tamarillo really close to it, like right next to it. We could plant a cherimoya, and then next to that we could plant an avocado. Tamarillo might live for 7, 8, 9 years, then it'll die. It fruits within 2 years. So within 2 years you're getting fruit. Right next to it is the cherimoya custard apple, and that takes a bit longer to produce fruit. I think it might take like 5, 6, 7 years to produce fruit. So when the tamarillo is dying, now the cherimoya is there, just starting to produce. And then it'll live for 20 years, say.
Yep.
And then when that when it's time for that to be finished, then the avocado is coming through, and the avocado will, if it's a grafted one you buy from the shop, you can get fruit really quick within a couple of years. But if it's one planted from seed, then you might have to wait like 8-9 years.
Yeah, okay.
But avocado can live for 100 years apparently.
Yeah.
So it's just that cycle of one tree finishing, and then the other tree comes into its form, it gives you some kai, then that finishes, then the other tree comes into its own. All three of those trees need benefit from some shade, especially while they're young.
Okay.
So by planting them together, you're creating a ideal environment for them to grow.
Yeah, got it. And when the Tamarillo passes, you replace it?
Yeah, but maybe by then the chirimoya's like got enough of a crown that it's quite shady underneath it.
Okay.
And so maybe by then you just leave that space for the chirimoya to hold.
Gotcha.
And the avocado. Yeah, you could, and just see what happens, because they are very quite shade tolerant tamarillos. So
Yeah, nice.
yeah.
Choice. Yeah, primo. So how much have you planted here?
Well, in our first year in 2020, we planted about. Sorry, we just got a little piggy walking under the table here.
Good. Kia ora.
This is Dragon. Oh, he's Dragon Tifa is his name.
Tifa.
Tifa Tua Uri Uri.
Hey, mate.
He's out lawnmower. What was the question? Sorry.
Well, how many plants
trees.
have you planted? Yeah.
In 2020, 2021, I think we planted around 2,000 plants, which was a whole mix of introduced species, some natives, fruit trees, stakes from cuttings and poplars, a bit of kawakawa, a bit of everything. And since then I've planted a bit more, but I've become so busy with our organisation that it's kind of slowed down my planting, which is quite frustrating for me, because I really want to keep planting and want to just cloak this whole whenua here in a canopy.
Yeah.
But yes, I've been too busy to just really keep up our planting. Yeah.
Knocking the camera over there.
Uh-oh. He might try to have a scratch on it. I might tell him to go, hey,
Yeah, I guess that's where I was kind of interested to. That's the kōrero I was really interested in. Like, what obstacles have you come across? Like, obviously, you got to generate some revenue, which takes you away from doing the mahi.
Yeah.
So that's definitely an obstacle. What other things have you kind of observed and noticed?
Yeah, well, no shortage of obstacles, that's for sure. When we started building our tiny house on wheels, we were all, big dreams, and it's, we're going to do this, and I'm going to build the house in 1 year, and then we're going to have a garden pumping, and we're going to be growing 80% of our food.
Yeah.
It's been so much slower than we ever imagined. Our house took about 3 or 4 years before we actually moved into it.
Yep.
Meanwhile, staying with my parents-in-laws, which was an amazing, privilege to be afforded. But also, you want to live in your own space and all of that. So that was hard. Learning to build. This was the first thing I built other than a bookshelf.
Yeah.
So just
turned out all right, man. Looks good.
Yeah, it's all good. Yeah. I'm still building it, as you can see. There's lots of little unfinished things around, but learning as you go is awesome, but also just challenging.
Yeah.
Trawling through YouTube videos for hours trying to find the answer to one little question about building, and
I understand that, bro, really well.
And in terms of the planting, Syntropic Agroforestry really requires a decent amount of management. There's you plant your plants and then you have to manage them. You have to do pruning and chop and dropping and stuff like that to ensure that it's working. And like I've fallen behind that just time and time again. I keep falling behind and then overplanting certain species. Like the Mexican sunflower is an amazing plant, but it grows really quick, and I just smothered our whenua with it, hundreds of tittonia, Mexican sunflower, which is awesome, but now I've got the job of managing it all the time. So
is it working with the kaikuyu?
It works amazing for basically like just shading out, depriving the kaikuyu of what it wants, which is a lot of sun. And I've got areas where I've done that, just out here, for instance, and it really has done a good job. I haven't weeded kaikuyu out of that bed for a year or longer. Like I just gave up on weeding it because I don't need to. But the other thing is that it's grown amongst all these fruit trees and other trees, and
they can get tall.
It overcrowds them, and because I haven't been timely enough with my management, now they're getting stunted. They're just too shaded all the time when they really want that nice sun in the spring. And building a home from scratch, starting with a paddock, fencing it, doing the driveway, building the house, the tiny house, building a shed, planting it out. It's a massive undertaking, especially when you're trying to do it all yourself. That was definitely our kaupapa, was to learn all of the skills it takes to create a homestead.
And it was your choice to go off grid as well?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Especially around here, to connect to the grid, it would have cost the same amount that the solar system cost to install and supply all the parts for it. And then we would have had to pay bills on top of it. And then we still would have had to deal with all of the power cuts up here in Panguru and Hokianga. So it was just an obvious choice, like go off grid.
I think there's something really rewarding as well about, putting the power in your hands, sort of thing. Like you have the responsibility yourself, power, water, your waste, understanding the, what do you do with your waste? How can you repurpose it? What can it be done? And that learning, that's huge in itself.
Totally.
But then also having solar power and, how much can be drawn for cooking, because I know you're on gas here.
Yeah.
So all those learnings I find awesome, because sharing that power, sharing that equity, and having others understand that, you can do it as well. So you're not so reliant on these things that can be taken away real quickly.
Yeah. I always add, I would love for my life to be an enriching experience for the whenua that we're upon, and for the earth itself, and that all of my actions and activities are enhancing of the ecosystem rather than degrading of. And in these times, it's even like going off grid and trying to be all sustainable and all that but even that comes with its footprint, like the creation of solar panels and batteries and stuff like that. I would love to live powerless. That would be awesome. But really, it would just be such a dramatic change in lifestyle that it would be such a shock to the system, and even just beginning to get your head around living without power. Definitely want to move toward less and less reliance of having power, even solar system power. But then we're getting into like hand tools and all of the skills you need to be able to use special hand tools and stuff like that to do what I normally do with my Makita tools. Anyway, it's really beautiful being able to just create our own power. We've got an electric car which we charge off our solar system.
Oh, awesome.
So we
how many kilowatts do you have?
4.5
Oh, yeah, it's
half
decent.
kilowatt. Yeah.
Decent.
Yeah. It's not huge but it's not tiny. And it was a fluke. We bought our electric car thinking we'll probably just have to charge it at our parents-in-law's.
Yeah.
Bought it home, tried it. Oh, on a sunny day it works, which is awesome. Yeah.
How much does it draw down?
I'm not sure. Our solar system has a real simple interface, so like it's hard to know exactly. But yeah. But on a sunny day, no problem. In the winter though, doesn't really work. Our inverter starts beeping at us saying no, it's not working.
Okay.
Yeah.
Primo. One thing I was keen to talk about as well. I know that you. Well, I don't know. I'm not sure if you have done yet, but wanting to supply the community. And I guess one of the key things that I've been sort of associated with. There's a lot of people talking about Kai sovereignty.
Yeah.
At the moment, and if there was another pandemic, how can we look after each other? And if these networks or systems or whatever all of a sudden, cut off. How do we do that? So keen to explore that with you, bro.
Kia ora. Yeah. Well, our organisation, O Nuku Aotearoa, kind of the main ways that we are supporting the community to be more food secure. In the past few years, it's been about creating educational opportunities so that whānau can learn about growing kai. So we've organised lots of wānanga with, sometimes with, really, really experienced gardeners. So we'll organise the wānanga, and the wānanga will happen at some expert gardeners, orchardists, people's places, and it'll be free to the community to attend and to just learn about like how do you plant a fruit tree and look after it, hopefully to get beautiful crops off this fruit tree, or how do you grow kumara. So that's been one way that we've been trying to achieve that, creating learning opportunities. What the other way, so this year the main focus is we're building a fruit tree nursery, and it's a social enterprise fruit tree nursery. So we're growing a variety of fruit trees that we're going to give away to the community, to marae, to kura, to whānau, to families, and we'll give them to them for free. But we'll also grow fruit trees to sell to fund the charitable purposes of our organisation. But the idea with that is, that whole thing. Give a man a fish and he'll eat for a day. Give a man a fishing rod and he'll eat for life. It's kind of the same with a fruit tree, where it's like give a man a fruit and he'll eat it and be hungry again in 5 minutes. But if you give a whānau a pear tree, that pear tree could live for more than 100 years and feed how many generations. So our plan is to grow enough fruit trees so that we can be able to provide a marae or kura or papakainga with an entire orchard worth of fruit trees. And with a variety of fruits. So you got ripening times, spread across the year, and you got bottling fruits and fresh eating fruits and stewing fruit and fruit that stores better, and so that whānau can exercise their own fruit sovereignty.
And is the organisation set up as a charitable trust or limited liability? Or
it's a charitable trust. Yeah.
Awesome.
And so the other thing that we're going to do to support our purpose of empowering Aotearoa toward intergenerational food security is by creating resources, digital resources, learning resources, whether that's video content or articles. We want to create an online library of resources, so that those three things together, the wānanga that we create, that's an in-person learning experience.
Yes.
Then we can provide whānau with the means to exercise their food sovereignty through fruit trees and companion trees. And then the online resources will be able to support the whānau when they're not with us in person.
Awesome.
They're just accessible online. You can go online and go through a catalogue about, you know, a specific fruit tree or an orchard, general orchard care. So that currently that's kind of our three main ways of supporting the community to exercise food security. So we're only at quite early stages. So I'm just building the fruit tree nursery now. We're about 3/4 built. And it's a substantial nursery. It's not like, you know, little backyard style.
Yeah.
It's pretty solid and
Good time to start recording it and
yeah,
you know, capturing the journey.
yeah.
For the listeners, what's the I guess the URL?
Yeah, so if you just Google Onuku Aotearoa, it should come up.
Yep.
But yeah, our website is www.onukuaotearoa.co.nz, and we're on Instagram and Facebook as well. So
Awesome.
can go on there and follow us. Yeah.
Choice. Yeah, I'll make sure to put that in the description and the show notes as well.
Thank you.
I guess the last sort of thing I was keen to chat about, I know in Whakapara where I am, the last couple of years that we've been there's been like dramatic sort of weather events.
Yeah.
And we've had to pivot and adapt real quickly because we got a little 2-acre permaculture site ourselves. That's in this valley, and if you dig down about 1.5 meters to 2 meters, there's all this like kind of volcanic rock. So we've been sort of lucky with the in terms of the flooding, like it dissipates 2 hours.
Wicked. Yeah.
So we've been lucky in that respect. But you know, the like Cyclone Gabrielle and a few other of these heavier rains, it just all of a sudden creates these massive streams and cuts through things. Trees come down. So that's been learning in itself. What kind of things have you observed, not just on your whenua, but around here? What's sort of the stories that you could maybe share?
Yeah. Well, I think the unpredictability of the times we're moving into with major weather events and rapidly spreading pandemics and lockdowns, they're concerning, and it's just an extra cause for communities, whānau, to be stepping into, you know, like how can we exercise our own independence, rangatiratanga, food security, and know that we're going to be safe, have good clean drinking water. At the moment, where our society, Māori, Pākehā, everyone almost is just so wrapped up in systems that the moment, you know, that cyclone hits, the moment that pandemic causes the lockdown, we're vulnerable, and now we're relying on you know, external sources to keep us nourished, to keep our kids nourished. So like, I can't emphasize how it's important that we need to step into that. And I think there's you know, some obvious pillars that will keep us okay through hard times, and one is clean water. Having drinking water accessible that's not coming through a pipe from, you know, from the council or whatever. 'Cause that pipe might burst, something like that.
You're on rainwater here, eh?
We're on rainwater, which is nice. I like it. I like being on rainwater. We harvest the rain that falls on our roof, and then on a sunny day, I'll pump it up the hill to a water tank that's up the hill, and then once it's up there, it just falls down. Gravity pushes it down to our house. So we need to use a little bit of power to get it up the hill. Our solar system will electric pump it up the hill. But then from then on, we're ready to just have the water fall down the hill. Even better, was if I had a roof that was above my water tank, and that would mean that the water that fell into that roof, say it was a shed up on top of the hill, would fall naturally through gravity into
directly.
that pipe. So that would mean that I don't even need a pipe to pump it up. So for me, like if rainwater is your only option, that would be the most resilient option, because who knows, you might have a cyclone and then your pump breaks down or your solar system stops working. So that I'm just talking about rainwater collection. Like you made a ram pump, which is awesome. That does not require power.
Still has a few obstacles itself. With the amount of pressure that hits the thing. But
So water is, like get your water system solid.
Do you have any sort of filtration on it?
Well, actually, I don't currently. Because when we were building this, I was only learning about it, and kind of no one else around here seems to have a filter.
Choice.
Yeah, which is now I'm like, I think pretty much everyone should have a filter. Because we don't know what kind of stuff is floating around in the atmosphere, and whatever bird poo's settling on the roof and then getting into our water and then contaminating it. So I've just installed
E. coli and all the rest of it.
So I will get a filter. I've just installed a filter at our nursery, and I'm ready to get one installed here. Is it
a UV filter or what type?
It's more just a sediment filter, that one.
Okay.
Because our nursery's relying on dam water. Which is, it's just a dam that's up the hill. So our nursery has no power, but we've dug a dam which is up the hill, which holds about 200,000 litres of water in this dam. And that's just pure gravity feed from the dam down to our nursery. And I just installed our sprinkler system the other day, and it works so good. Yes.
How, what's the story there? Like, you built it yourself? You had a team?
So, I had the dam dug by a digger. That was done, and then we dug a pipe into the ground, 200-meter pipe, which goes up the hill, and then into the dam, and then basically I installed the irrigation station, just where the pipe comes in through the filter, and then then shoots out to the various places that it needs to go, and I had an irrigation guy come up and help me a couple of times. He's kind of like the expert, and he comes up for a day, kind of tell me what I need to do, and then I get on with it for a few weeks. And he'll come back up again, and then just repeat. But we're pretty much finished now. So
I love how you went from bookshelf to tiny home to dam.
Well, like especially if you're on clay soil, a water body is if you can dig out a hole in the earth, which in itself is typical human. Come in, I want a hole in the earth, and I'm gonna get a digger which uses fossil fuels to do that. But in terms of long-term kind of resilience, having a pond that fills up with water, or from the rain or from a spring, you now all of your irrigation water, all of the water that you need that doesn't need to be clean, drinkable, can be used from the dam, and you can save your clean water for drinking, showering, that type of thing.
Nice.
So there's heap. Like, I mean, that's just the water component. Then there's like the shelter belt aspect. Cyclones. We need tough trees that can stand up to cyclones, and they need to be planted in a way that's going to support our home to withstand those, but also not so shady that you got nowhere to grow your garden. So there's like a real intentionalness that needs to happen with shelter belts. Native trees are wind hardy. Because we're such a coastal country, most native trees can really, really handle a lot of wind. And then there's other exotic species that are renowned as cyclone-proof trees.
Awesome.
So shelter belt is another big one. And then soil, having a space to garden, knowing how to lift the fertility of your soil, especially if you've got low fertility soil that doesn't produce food, so or much food. So knowing how to work with the soil to lift its mauri to be able to grow good kai. Those are some of the things for me about resilience through the unpredictability of the future.
It's really strange sort of times when you have to now think in that way. Awesome, bro. I guess the last thing I was keen to chat about is kind of in terms of community sort of resilience. I mean, there's like in our area we've got people who biodynamic farmers. There's hapu and marae that are doing some really good work. You talked about papakainga a little bit before. How as a community, what's the best sort of, not that you may or may not have the answers, but in terms of communities communicating to each other, and how do we understand what's going on over there? So for example, the permaculture site that we've got is in a valley, and it has a very specific sort of way that operates. Our neighbour, who's right up on top of the hill, he's a biodynamic farmer, has his way of operating. He's been there for 20 odd years, doesn't change his formula, but no one knows about him until you actually go up and knock on the door. How can we as a community, I guess, be better with that communication and understand trade and all that kind of thing?
Bro, I think it's a real potent, important question. And, not that I have experience in bringing a whole community together to achieve...
Relying on you, Jared.
But, like, for me, all of the strategies about how to create a resilient community that can withstand climatic change, we know those. We know there's like regenerative agriculture and permaculture, and there's like mātauranga Māori, and there's all these strategies, and there's the water system and soil fertility. It's all spelt out. It's all in books. It's all on video on YouTube and everything. So obviously it takes probably a compelling leader to stir up the enthusiasm and inspire the community to come together. Or a group of people who are really driven to push that kaupapa. But I think for even bigger than that is that we have to heal ourselves. There's a lot of healing to do so that we can communicate and work through a difficult conversation and be able to hear the other person and feel like I'm being heard too, and that we're giving each other grace, and that we're flexible, and I think I think there's a lot of healing that needs to happen in a person to be really open, and to be able to take the denial, take rejection or whatever it is, and then keep going. And so I think that the coming together part, that's the key, and I feel like there's just a lot of hurt in all of us, and we're constantly being set off and triggered, which was the cause of something that was imprinted on us when we were kids or whatever. It's not so much about who I am now, it's about what baggage I'm carrying around with me still.
It's fascinating, eh? Even the intergenerational stuff that gets handed down. In the whakapapa, being passed on, and so for me that's it. It's about how do we learn to communicate in a way that looks after each other, and even when I disagree with you, it's okay, and I still love you just as much. Yeah.
But I don't agree with what you're saying.
Sounds like you've done a lot of self-development. So what kind of things have led to that exploration, or what are there any modalities that you practice or do? Or?
Yeah, well, I, in my mid-20s, had a hard time. Had a few years. I had about 4 or 5 years where I struggled mentally. I had a really tough time, and climbing out of that, wanting to feel good, wanting to just live a thriving life, and you know, show up as the vibrant person I know I could be. Reaching for that and moving toward that taught me a lot. Having kids really exposed so much about myself that you know, was kind of hiding away.
Right.
And I guess just being a person who I want to be an awesome as dad. You know, I want to be a great dad. I want my son to just know that I love him so much, and I'm so proud of him. It doesn't even matter what he does, you know, like he can be bad as, and you know, I'll put up my boundaries, but also like I still love you so much. And that's you know, having kids has been the big one, and they're constantly, I'm just finding more out about myself, and having a partner too. You know, like that's triggering as
Exposes you.
So yeah, I don't know, like just wanting to experience peace within myself, because when I'm getting frustrated about the situation with my kids or my partner or whatever, you know, I'm not experiencing peace, and I'm projecting negativity out onto the world, and I want to feel good, and I want my partner to feel great, and I want her to feel supported. I want my little girl, who's 7 months old now, to, you know, just be a confident as girl who knows she's just unconditionally loved, and I don't want that to be tainted by my behavior. You know, if I'm
they're watching,
and you know, if I'm losing the plot, if I'm yelling at them like, you know, once a week or once a month or whatever, then I'm tainting them with my baggage.
Yeah.
And I don't want that. I want them to be free to just, you know, grow into who they are without being weighed down by the adults who, you know, came on heavy onto them. So
nice, beautiful.
That's kind of why I answered that previous question in the way I did.
Choice.
Yeah.
Man, there's so much to reflect on, eh? I think we all come in with our human design, and you know, we land on this earth with so many things. But yeah, like, because I was adopted. And it was fascinating finding my my birth family. When I met two of my brothers for the first time, and they were walking the same as me, and they were kind of, you know, when they were feeling a bit shy, then they kind of caving in a bit. I was like, man, it's almost like looking back in time. And then understanding the reason why I was adopted, and I was like, oh, actually, that's not my stuff. I can park that now. So yeah, for me, it was fascinating just understanding that things can be passed down through the bloodline. You know. And then meeting them and going, oh wow, okay, I can let that go. How fascinating. Yeah, beautiful little journey this life is, eh? Choice. Hey, man, thank you for your sharing. I think we've come to our hour. Is it a choice, Kōrero? Jared, thank you for inviting me to your whenua. You know, seeing and hearing from you, all the amazing journey that you've had, and sharing your wisdom that you've picked up, and the knowledge you've picked up on the way. So kia ora, appreciate it.
Tēnā koe, my brand. Just really appreciate you reaching out to me, and lovely to connect with you and be able to share these whakaaro, and I know that there's definitely an affinity and some of the kaupapa between us that we've been talking about, and it's just really cool to be able to share that with someone who who can understand that, and who's also on the kaupapa of living a good life, and giving back to the whenua and giving back to the community. So, tēnā koe.
Primo. I'm sure we're going to jam again.
Yeah.
Have a jam session on something sometime soon. So, yeah, kia ora.